know who these people are, that I'm suggesting that it's the thriving perspective that we want to take on in this conference of women entrepreneurs. But also I'm suggesting that it's not just women entrepreneurs in isolation that we need to grow and develop, just as this particular type of family firms that I would expect to have continued dynamically grow and develop. But also we're looking at males, particularly looking at male and female children, blood relatives of the founding controlling family. So when I mean controlling, I mean still founding shareholders, shareholding control, but not exclusively in certain industries like finance we've been talking about, that banks have required not more than just very plain group family, the family skills to do it. Yeah? So because of certain industry policies and state mandated changes that we've been able to also, in a different way, dynamically develop, co-develop from a state policy perspective and also from the internal dynamics of family firm. Here are the, we were talking about role models previously. Here's my role model. I think many of us from Malaysia, Indonesia, and maybe, well, I think, do you see Grab almost? But it's just called Grab. Yes? It's you're from Malaysia, Indonesia, you know what I mean, taxi, not stuff like that. Yeah, or an American cab. Any of you not know who she is? You know, she's certainly all over Google Image. You look up Grab Taxi, My Taxi, TKSI, which is the Malaysian, bastardization of a nice Indonesian word. We borrow a lot. She's Melissa Tan today. She's my role model for a slightly different reason. She's a Harvard MBA graduate. I never gone to Harvard myself. Tried. So different reasons. Same kind of perspective. She's late 30s now. She and her partner, Brian, have gotten very prominent in local Malaysian. If you Google her, you probably get her partner's name. And there's a reason for that, yeah, which is a bridge into what I want to suggest. Because her partner, who is the CEO and the face of Grab Taxi, Grab My Taxi, and so on, is a scion of a family control firm, Anthony Tan. Although they both share the same name, I think they are not really, I believe they're not related. Melissa is one of the two co-founders. She's now a corporate banker, earning a proper salary. Instead, the risk-taking and the perspective of starting a new type of perhaps a family closely controlled, right, shall we say, has fallen on her male partner. And you know, it's not just any old name. He is the youngest son of the third generation of a famous institutional Malaysian name. Say that, oh, there you go. Called Cantong Motors. Yeah? These institutions, like Grab Taxi, work and have developed their own institutional resources, their capital. And well, the first point is to suggest that we, rather than thinking that these institutions are on their way out, they're here to stay, and we've got a lot to learn and develop, including Melissa Tan, who is not a member of the Tan Chong family. Anthony Tan himself has said very clearly, how can I, that he did not get approval from his family for this app-based Uber business in Malaysia. But the interesting thing is, because of his name, he is CEO, he's leveraged his name. He won't say this openly, yes? But I'm suggesting that clearly, Anthony Tan, being who he is, everybody knows him. Venture capitalist, yes. This organization has raised US $340 million, according to internet sources. $340 million is a not small amount of money. And anyone here can tell me you can raise any money like that unless you had a reputation, yeah? Unless you had internal networks, that even though he doesn't openly acknowledge it, yes, that these are important levers for our Asian development. Rather than to look on overseas models, what can we learn from the person underneath? Yeah? Well, we might get there. Yes, she's Elizabeth Holmes. She's in the news. Those of you who read the FT, she's been all over the Financial Times and Asian and Wall Street Journal for the last since October last year, because she's in trouble. But she's one of Silicon Valley's few women technology women entrepreneurs. I want to skip this because I don't have time, yes? My second point is to look beyond this type of firm, which I call the extended household. Extended meaning that they are not just a family control firm with blood relatives running and managing the show. Yes? That in order to thrive very early on, after the Second World War, that many of these companies I'm talking about, and time shown is certainly post-war and so on and so forth, have flourished and grown beyond just the Second World War. But nonetheless, they are institutionalized. They form an essential part of our Malaysian, Singaporean fabric that we need to use. Singapore has its own family control company, yes, very powerful, which uniquely the Singapore case competing with Singapore GLC, with the government, sore loser, yes, they won't stand a chance. But certainly in finance and banking, 3 out of 4 banks in Singapore banks are still family controlled. Yes. I want to mention the second point that, in passing, that I have a minute to say this, that whilst we have a perspective of children of founding families who have a privileged position historically, as I suggested here, that they started up businesses that we look at on as role models. Yeah? These are rich, wealthy families, children, or children's wives, such as Chomel, for example, husband of founder of Chomel, I think he sold on, is the elder son of Robert Cook, yes, of Shangri-La fame. Chinese family firms are not exclusive. Yeah? They are Malay-owned family franchise person control and so on. There is a Sapura rolling, there's Malewa, etc. and so forth. But at least Chinese firms have been very powerful in publicizing them. Very well publicized individually. Yes, they buy a lot of public assets in the UK now, so which are high profile. Other ethnicities, there aren't many, as I said, Indian, etc. and so forth. But Chinese ones are the most popular. Yeah? We need to be able to try and use fine. It's not for me, I'm an academic. Yeah? I study these companies. What do I learn from this that I want to pass on to you? Yeah? We need to try and see how we can use this research I've suggested, yes, of there being role models. You're saying there are none. I'm saying there are. Yeah, we just don't recognize these role models. Come on, yes? They've been with us for a long time. In my generation, Chomel Club 21, Christina Ong is still the wife of Ong Bin Sim, Pearl Props, yes, etc. In London, elsewhere, Millennium Hotel, all over the news. They are our role models. We just do not recognize them. It's not they are not there. We don't recognize them, yes? And how we can use these far more constructively, yes, in bridging that gap between what entrepreneurship has become, yeah, from being a rich person's kind of pastime that they can dispense with, to the kind of India and Hong Kong world being from that kind of micro startups, yes, that I don't like as an entrepreneurship teacher. There's a false distinction between micro entrepreneurs because they're poor, they're dispossessed and so on, and real entrepreneurs. Yeah? It's another gap that we have to try and fill. Together with so many other gaps, is that in our perception, I'm suggesting that. It's not exclusive, yes, I'm suggesting that. I don't disagree with what we said before, I want to add to it. You see what I'm saying? Yeah? Yeah? I'm not saying that what we said before is not what I'm saying. I'm saying we need to also perceive our own limitations, not recognizing the presence of women entrepreneurs, yes, as they are, on their own terms. I want to leave it at that. Lots of slides here. I don't know if, yeah, I'm talking quite fast. I don't know if we are in a stage of publicizing, kind of sharing these files, but we should, because I put them together quite earnestly for my own research. So there have been many questions, I hope, but because I've run out of time, I want to pass the floor to somebody else. You want me to talk more? I can talk the next time. Academics have no problem talking. Okay. Well, I need my 2 points. Yes. Well, you know, there are other points. Yeah. You know, this family is really interesting, and not just because I'm an academic. Yeah? Because the way that I've drawn here between your traditional, our view of family firms has been, you got families here, and you got some dunce managers up there, dunce, real dumb to work for a family firm, out there and so on, of a nuclear husband, wife, who started a family mom and pop business, with his 2 offspring. This is what I mean by family. You've got kind of a direct linear relationship in this very static view. That's not how it is. In my previous research, I it's my PhD in publications, and I've suggested that there is a much more inclusive nature in which these guys are smart. They move beyond this nuclear family of pop and mom because you do not grow. Yeah? Very fundamental. They've included, and there is a lot of deep thought about how to include talented men and women. I've seen more women, not entrepreneurs, but women, managers and other employees. Yes, they're in HR, they count, but they count, bodies count. Better women than no women. Yeah? In family control firms that I researched, Yuan Sun, Singapore particularly, multi-generational extended family firms. 7th generation Yuan Sun. They've certainly got something to tell us, but we haven't asked. Yeah? Yuan Sun in London too, shops elsewhere, etc. Yeah? And this extended family perspective of being able to compare to that what I currently research, which is bioscience ventures in northeastern Europe. Fount of developed economies, yes, you would have thought, a hell of a lot of inclusion, yeah? Financial, technology inclusion, no. Yeah? I've not seen a single white-coated lab female scientist that is not just that, but I'm arguing from a male perspective, there is also certain expectations of what a male bioscience laboratory technician should look like. Yeah? A bit of a geek. Yeah? So it's a bit, interviewing for me is a bit one-sided, as it were. Yes, asking questions. In the same time. But, you know, so it's not just in different economies we have this. There are barriers which are also, I'm suggesting, not just constraining our behavior, but should also, like the extended family, be used to enable positive activities and behavior and thinking. I'm suggesting that. How it's to be done is for us here. Yes, you practitioners are able to tell me whether I'm right, wrong, good, wrong direction. But that's my research. Yeah? And these extended families have got something to tell us. Like this, for example. The process here of capital and people supply management. How they're able to finance themselves. Nobody finances them. You know, even now it's a little research phenomenon, how these large manage to grow, not develop, but grow into extended international phenomena, able to buy Wessex water. Yeah? Can you imagine these are all family firms here? How are they able to finance that? Interesting question. Don't know. Need to open the floor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, any questions? I mean, it's really interesting when you pointed out that how ethnicity can influence the entrepreneurial. Because even in Myanmar, even though we are not a very rich country, and the Chinese people, though they are about 10% officially, they are the richest in Myanmar. I think even if you go to Malaysia, you will see that the Chinese ethnic groups are the richest. So I think this is one thing that ethnicity can influence the entrepreneurial activity, maybe. This is something to think about in Southeast Asia. So we can take about 1, 2 questions now. Yeah.
There are a lot of work with family firms in Asian region, and these are my observations. I'd like your thoughts on that. One is a lot of these family firms have been controlled by the patriarchs. What we often see is that the power struggle between the younger generation that has been in England abroad and is coming back, and the patriarch is not letting go of the control, and therefore that's impacting on the growth of the company. So that, and what that actually ends up happening is, and we're starting to see that in this country, sons are taking, maybe sons are taking fathers to court. And what we're starting to see is the first generation has the money, has made the business, and the third generation loses it. So whilst I accept they embrace the collaborative approach, I question whether the processes and the systems are in place to enable sustainability of business.
Yeah, I've been looking into processes and systems, certain processes, not procedures, because I mean, we're not talking about some mandate from anybody that the children have got to follow in a very stylized national manner. So I like the word processes because it's changeable, it's dynamic, it's iterative, and that's what I think one of the fundamental lessons we've got to learn from family firms, that you're not talking necessarily, I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm not necessarily about that I recognize, just like everyone else, that there are succession and other development problems. As I said, yes, that there are typical struggles anywhere in the world. But there is among scholars a great disagreement about definitions, about the nature of parenthood for this very reason, because they are dynamic and heterogeneous. You cannot put your finger on it, because these people won't let you into what the nature is. Is there a core nature of family firms? You know, German, etc., very different from each other, let alone from non-German firms. Yes, I mentioned that because it's a kind of huge development in the last 10 to 15 years or so. German family firms are trying to move away from being family, less family and more professionally managed, etc. and so forth. That is what we're suggesting. But there are other many other positive learning lessons in the way that they've continued to survive. Asia still, I've had a slide earlier on, but I wasn't able to get through it, to suggest that although my slides tend to be a little bit updated. I mean, these are someone else's statistics that I'm showing here. You know, Rafael Porter is fellow with this partner in Harvard Business School, was one of the big eggs, and we still refer to his work a lot. That you can see here, that we're looking at Asia still being at least 15, 16 years ago, but I can't imagine this picture has radically changed. So whilst we tend to take what I'm suggesting, not saying you do, maybe someone else's perspective, or Western perspective, or whatever perspective of family firms that they have problems, I'm suggesting that on their own terms, I use that term again, that there are a lot of, if not positive, certainly interesting, beyond survival, thriving, prosperity, growth reasons, yes, that we need to look more deeply at how some of these phenomena that have come also into the UK, dominated our lives here, quite openly, have managed to do so, specifically from a finance perspective. If not taken for granted, that's such as because they are publicly listed, many of them, city development, Hong Leong, for example, can get the kind of financing. I'm trying to provide rationale for that in the way that they manage to leverage their networks, their reputation. Some the Chinese were a little bit like Apple. We had a chap here from Microsoft. A little bit like Apple. Apple's very good at publicizing what it does, but not very good at telling other people how it manages. And family firms, perhaps there is the same similarity that some of them, I'm not saying all ethnic Chinese family firms are great at self-publicity. Some of them who have been in our faces are actually extremely well prepared, well publicized. Bain, for example, has been on BBC, etc. and so forth. You won't find this kind of perspective with maybe Malay or Indian. They're equally worthy of study, but they'll be less studied, as I say. And that's another area we could look at to compare and contrast ethnicities and their impact and influence on entrepreneurship. Out of this entrepreneurship, stage 2 was my second point, that we have an opportunity for younger entrepreneurs, men and women, to liberate themselves. I was the first eldest son of the third generation of my family firm. I was already working in a bank, I mentioned what it was, when my father died. As the eldest family, I was expected to take over the family firm. Well, since I already had a secure job, guess what I did? Sold the family jewels. My family never forgave me. I sold a lot. I dumped them. Yes? Because why? I'm working in a bank. Banks is just value a company and sell it. Why have an emotional attachment? Lots of academic literature on how family firms are different. Not for me to regurgitate that per se. There is this emotional attachment, which is very much part of the dynamics of how family businesses are not just passing. We need to try and rationalize and use these elements of our culture, rather than assuming they're just transitional. After a few years, we get fewer family companies, more Western picture, Western government, because we're getting all the top-down institutions, of corporate governance, of corporate social responsibility, of ethics. All that is imported. There is nothing Singaporean, Malaysian, anywhere else about any of our corporate governance in Singapore. lots on the barrel. Yeah. Some, of course, think for our adaptations for our closely controlled, but not much. You find very much the same international standards of corporate governance as you get for international audit standards, international accounting. So, there is this perspective. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm an academic. I don't take sides. I just want to find out what the picture on their own terms, as I use it here. What do family firms think about their own future? What's the nature of family firms? And how do younger people leverage this thing? Yeah? I was stuck myself. I had a real choice: sell or continue. Couldn't continue, because it would have meant this extended family business. So I dumped and continued my corporate banking career. Here I am, as an academic. Fired, 40-something years old. Yes, fired. Do I want to stay? Some people say, why do you change it? Why do you come back? Nobody ever decides to give up banking. Nobody. Let me tell you right now, nobody dumps $1 million salary. It's not a choice. Got fired.
Thank you very much, Wilson.
Let other people speak.
We can catch up later because we've got another two speakers. I know he's very passionate about his research. So I would like to invite Masaji. She's a banker from Yoma Bank, which is a growing bank in Myanmar. She would like to share about some of her entrepreneurial activity and how the bank is contributing to entrepreneurship in Myanmar.
Thank you, Sandra, and thank you for those who stay until the last panel very patiently. Since I'm from Myanmar, I'm going to talk about the topic from the perspective of Myanmar. It is true that Myanmar has quite a lot of gender discrimination, flaw in the constitution, and laws that are biased towards men. However, if we are talking about entrepreneurship, particularly in the private sector, I will say the society is relatively open to women compared to the rest of the other sector. Over the past decade, we have seen several businesswomen striving in parallel to men, and I think though we got lots of women who make it to the top list, top 50 women, and Daw Aung San Suu Kyi, all these. I should be pressing that. In fact, I would even like to go on and make a claim that I think Myanmar women historically has been known to be stronger character and stronger will than those of male counterpart. History has seen that, and this is recently being evident by the success of Our Lady Daw Aung San Suu Kyi. Having said this, there are still many challenges ahead, especially women from the underprivileged background, from the poor background, and which still represent majority of the female population, which is about 80% of the population. And this made me worry because I came from a relatively well-off background. I'm educated abroad, but recently when I returned to Myanmar, even myself, I found myself facing quite a lot of challenges against the traditional belief. And I cannot imagine how these women who has no mean or aspiration to challenge these traditions and backward-looking belief, how they will survive the situation. And in Myanmar, culture and religion has been used as a mechanism to create rules and tradition that are biased towards men. And we as women should not be scared to challenge this tradition. And just because a tradition has existed for a long time, and because it has been accepted, it does not mean it's just equal. Now, in terms of visible barrier, and like I said, when you combine culture and religion together, it becomes a major obstacle for us. In Myanmar, the way we are brought up, women are expected to be obedient and to keep a low profile. If you are assertive and decisive, you are seen as very aggressive and seen negatively in the society. Older generation generation especially expect women to be playing the supporting role behind the men. And they also believe that women do not deserve to have a leading role, especially men, and actually quite a lot of women as well do not want to follow the leadership of a woman. For instance, women will be seated always behind the men in ceremonial, especially in the monastery. And in fact, there are places in pagoda where women are restricted to, in fact, forbidden to enter, and only men are allowed to enter. So they're very visible, you know, since you're born, you can see very visible barrier. And I can go on quite a lot of these. And another visible barrier is the lack of supported environment for women entrepreneurs. For instance, there is no safe public transportation or safe taxi for women to work late and have late meeting to compete with the men. As well as visible barrier, there are many hidden barriers. First of all, inferiority complex. The way we are brought up, I think a lot of women still believe that men are stronger leader and they are better decision maker. And Myanmar women tend to have more self-doubt, and we are less willing to take risks in businesses, and due to fear of failure in the society. And next is trophy wife syndrome. In Myanmar culture, to be the good woman, you are supposed to be taking care of the husband, the children, and the extended family member. And if you are one of the lucky one and breakthrough, and even if you start the business, and you are the main breadwinner of the family, you're still expected to continue this multiple role of mother, wife, and a businesswoman. And often, most women find that the benefit do not outweigh the risk and end up not starting the business. And lastly, the issue is mainly for young businesswomen, and they do not receive enough due credit and respect in the society because of their gender and age. And for a young woman, for you to manage older generation or even reason with, it is very difficult, especially if you use a harsh or assertive tone with them in the public. It is seen as very impolite or not withholding the cultural value. And since the country opened up, we have got quite a lot of initiative social enterprises that are trying to address these barriers. And today I'd like to talk about the 3 local initiatives. That's so the first one is Yangon Bake House. It is founded by a group of professional and businesswomen, and their aim is very simple. With their limited capacity, they want to help the disadvantaged women such as prostitutes, entertainment girls, and those from the extremely poor family background. They train not only how to bake, but also they teach them their life skill and about their women's rights and aspiration. And these women, after they graduate, they go on and become a leader in their own communities, and also they start their own businesses. And the second initiative is actually a microfinance organization called Brighter Future Myanmar. Its focus is obviously to give the microfinancing loan to women in the rural area. Because of the way the banking law is, in Myanmar we cannot, the banks are not allowed to lend without collateral. So these women traditionally would not have a hope to get any traditional loan from the bank. And third initiative, which is very interesting, is called Akaya Women. Its main objective is simply to empower women by teaching them how to defend and exercise their rights in their day-to-day life. They encourage women to speak out if there is any sexual abuse or any other type of abuses. They also teach them how to support each other in the community. And over the last year, few years in Myanmar, since the country become popular, we got so many conferences and talk on women's rights. However, because of these, we are starting to see some policy changes in the government, very little, but there are some. However, I would say that these policy changes are not enough. We must, what is important is we try to get involved and support these local initiatives. Even with these local initiatives, they're not large enough to make the real impact, and there are too many of them. And I think we have to help them to coordinate together. And today I hear about power and quite a lot of interesting, I think there was a woman wins or something. I think they coordinate all these efforts together. So by coming here today, it has been amazing to, I'm actually taking the list of all of them to see how we can coordinate all the effort together. And in Myanmar, women make more than half of the population, exactly 51.8%. So we believe that by empowering, these women, we will make a huge impact on the social and society, as well as on the entrepreneurship growth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madaji. I mean, like, as a Burmese woman, I can still relate to whatever she is saying. Whenever I go back home, my parents say, "Can you act a bit more like a woman rather than a man?" Because I don't do things like what a woman is supposed to do in Burma. So, well, we also always have visible and invisible barriers, and there are no visible barriers where women are like, they should act like sophisticated, less confident, and being aggressive is like, you're attracting people. You shouldn't do that. And if you act like a man or confident woman, you are not marriageable anymore. So I think like there are some like backlash against feminism. So, well, I can relate to her. So what are there any questions that you might want to ask her?
You have any questions?
Since nobody else,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just wondering how I could learn to bake. I'm just wondering, because some of these skills are also very relevant to people like me who would like to learn. So as I say, I mean, liberation is not just for, the more you push people to a corner, the more difficult our task becomes. I'm not saying again, I'm saying, of course, we need to be liberated primarily from men, but also men need to be liberated from themselves. I mean, I've never learned how to bake. I never changed that in my life, but I'm not expected to. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm serious.
So what's your question?
Can I join? Can men?
Oh.
Can, entrepreneurs can those,
Of course,
You
actually.
can buy a cookbook.
or is it just like a spotlight? Here a spotlight, you have to be female before you can sign up. You can
Part of our initiatives is to include men, definitely. And we want to make the change positively, and whether we like it or not, most of the companies are still led by the men. So men has to change first, in order to the whole things to change. So definitely welcome you to any of the program.
There's one question from there.
Hi, thanks for your talk. I wanted to know what the role of microfinance is in Burma, because traditionally and research has shown that the repayment rates are higher with women, and that's why Grameen and the Philippines card does it with, exclusively for women. And if that is a tool that you're looking at in terms of empowering entrepreneurs.
Yes, there are actually quite a lot of microfinancing institutions right now, but the effectiveness, I would have to say, is not that great. They're trying to go to community and trying to reach out to them individually. So the effort has been there, but the effectiveness we haven't seen it yet.
What's the resistance from? What's the deterrent?
Resistant, I think, first of all, you are trusting quite a lot of social, local people in terms of collection, for example, you're expecting quite a lot of coordination among all these individuals. I think, Sandra, actually your field is microfinance,
Yes.
right?
I mean, like microfinance, it depends on the social collateral. So what happened in Myanmar right now is that because it's a social collateral, people, like you said, the repayment rate is 100%, perfect. So many of the investors come in. It used to be a philanthropic purpose. But however, now it's a commercial. Once it becomes commercial, it loses all these purpose. And many people, because like in our culture, people don't trust each other. I think it must come from the military dictatorship, etc. So people, if one person default, another person has to pay for it. So I think that's why the repayment is high. So we cannot take these statistics as a success of microfinance. So there are a lot of people who are still resisting, but there are still investors who are coming in to utilize and take leverage out of the 100% repayment rate. But actually, it is having a bit of negative effect in some societies.
Thank you.
Yeah, firstly, when you mentioned the issue of religion and tradition being an obstacle to empowerment, I was wondering if you could comment a little bit more about the strategies that you see as viable for breaking down some of those religious and cultural, I guess, obstacles for women in Myanmar. And also, I've heard some journalistic accounts of Mongla, the kind of independent territory, sort of like a Las Vegas style of Burma or something. Where
What is it?
Mongla.
Monyo. Like you're saying about the Las Vegas style of Burma?
There's some like city where they use the Chinese currency and a lot of kind of Chinese sex tourists.
You were mentioning about the Chinese border where the it's like an independent state.
Yeah.
It's happening there.
Yeah, and I was wondering how like women's initiatives could maybe reach into that particular jurisdiction and try and address some of the abuses that are going on there.
I don't know much about what's happening in Wa, to be honest. This is the first time I've heard,
I think it's like a Chinese gambling and prostitution sort of den.
I mean, like, especially in the border part, because our currency is not trusted by a lot of people. So in those areas, like even in Thai border, they are using Thai currency rather than Myanmar currency. So, well,
they
and
even set the clocks, I think, to Chinese time. Actually, yeah.
Well, I mean, like, they are having their own independent states. Actually, yeah, you were right, because they have set up their own government, like a small little government under the big government. So yeah, I heard that there are a lot of initiatives going on to get, but I think this is done with the NGOs and central governments.
We have so many initiatives, but they are so individual. Everybody I met, I mean, is somehow doing some sort of woman or initiative, but none of them talk to each other. I just met with a lady who is from Denmark. She got funding from Denmark, and then doing on all these sexual, slave sexual worker. Then I met another. Nobody know each other neither. I think this is the coordination that we need to bring it together to make it more effective. Even Yangon Bay House, they're doing great things, but they can only do 48 women in a year. So I think it's not effective. It's like, I mean, the people who get help is great, but it's not sustainable.
Okay, so we'd like to invite Amy. She's a body of law, and she's also the chair of the ASEAN Forum in the UK. So, yeah.
Thank you, Senator. Yeah, okay, got it. Sorry, just slide back to go. Okay. Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to discuss today the music innovation, become an empowered women, and also the visible and invisible barriers to succeed as an empowered woman. Firstly, let me just quote the Women's Empowerment Principles, or WEP. It's a guidance developed between UN Women and the United Nations Global Compact. WEP means empowerment
empowering women to participate fully in economic life across all sectors is essential to build stronger economies, achieve internationally agreed goals for development sustainability, and improve the quality of life, not only for women, but also for men, families, and communities. When we empower women, we improve their lot. We improve half of the world's population. We tap into the untapped resources of the potential of women in building the economy. A third of the world's and less than half of the ASEAN enterprises is owned by women. And behind the success of each and every male enterprise is a supporting role of women which cannot be ignored. Women's entrepreneurship has a tremendous potential in empowering women and transforming society. The United Nations estimates that the Asia-Pacific economy region would earn an additional $89 billion every year if women were to achieve its full potential. Moreover, the World Bank estimates the output per worker would increase from 7 to 18% if female entrepreneurs and employees in the East Asia Pacific region work in the same sectors, types of jobs, and activities as men with similar levels of access to productive resources. But of course, there are other ways on how women can empower themselves, for example, by seeking out opportunities for education, developing or advancing their skills, and also by making themselves politically engaged and aware by voting representatives who can support the best and protect their best interests. Women can also be empowered by being aware of their rights, the resources available to them in the event that these rights are violated, and the means of recourse in order to seek justice. But women's economic empowerment, as in the WEP, for me is the epitome, because it will give women choices to pursue education, as what mentioned in Kawa charity earlier, and we'll have more time for other pursuits of empowerment. As the WEP states, it will not just improve the quality of life of women, but also of men, families, and communities. I think this is a very strong motivation for everyone, all the stakeholders, the governments, the organizations, civil societies, and women themselves. But in particular, women's motivation, which is also similar to men and why they pursue business or entrepreneurship, is a passion for the business, the independence, added income, fulfillment of their own dreams, or simply help in the family economics. For some, it is an alternative career option and more economic freedom. In the Philippines, there are two major push factors of motivation for women. One is poverty, which is coming from the majority of the population, which is poor, and the other is growing up in an entrepreneurial family environment. As in most countries in the Asia Pacific, more so in the Philippines, micro, small, and medium enterprises, or MSMEs, constitute the vast majority of enterprises. Based on the Philippine Department of Trade and Investment, or DTI data, MSMEs accounted for 99.7%, almost 100, of all enterprises, and provided almost 70% of the jobs generated by all enterprises. The bulk of MSMEs at 91.6% is composed of the micro enterprise. Small enterprises are around 7.7%, and then the medium enterprises at 0.4%. Filipino women are very active entrepreneurs. For many of them, putting up a business provides additional income to the family. According to the GE Money Bank Philippines, which advocates the growth of entrepreneurship among women in the country, Philippines is the second highest percentage of women in business after Peru. The Philippines also heads the region in terms of women in senior management roles and is a leader in women's entrepreneurial activity. This is consistent with the Department of Trade and Industry's data in 2009, showing that 54% of enterprises are female-owned. However, most of these enterprises are small, consisting only of the owner or a manager as a sole employee. So it's like a single person enterprise. Because women usually have as little as 10,000 pesos capital, which is around roughly 150 pounds, and thus can only penetrate activities with low entry barriers, such as retail trade, food stalls, like this one, and also, outside the data of the MSMEs are informal enterprise. So, yeah, such as this one, street vendors, selling fruits, candles, all types of merchandise, and even like a mini restaurant, informal restaurant just on the side of the street, fish vendor, and the upper right is upper right hand portion is what we call it's like a convenience store in the Philippines. It can range, it can sell all types of products. Other inspiring Philippine entrepreneurs who grew up in an entrepreneurial environment, to name a few, are the likes of Teresa C. Coson, Vice Chairperson of SM Investment Corporation, which had a market cap of around $9.3 billion in 2012. Ms. C. Coson is the daughter of Henry C., a Filipino-Chinese, who is one of the top richest in the country. Again, this confirms the mentioned earlier that in most of the Asian countries, Chinese are the richest. And then I have Lloyd Nicholas Lewis, who has a net worth of around 600 million and named as one of the richest businesswomen in the USA. She served as chair and CEO of TLC Beatrice International, a $2 billion multinational company with operations all across Europe from 1994 to 2000. Since I only have 2 minutes, I just go through the others. So that's Cheryl Quintana, president founder of Arispa, first and finest maker of rice bran-based products in the country. And Judith Versosa, actually she's quite impressive. She just started with around 300 pounds capital. She opened a small neighborhood eatery in their garage. And now it's the biggest catering company in the Philippines. They service 20,000 people every day. And then the others, Yuling, Sevilla, and then that's the last 4 Filipinas I've just mentioned. They've been recently honored at the ASEAN Women Entrepreneurs Network, or AWEN, at a ceremony in Hanoi, Vietnam. So I just quickly browse the visible and invisible barriers. In a study which was conducted by the Asia Foundation in partnership with the U.S. Department of State and APC on 3 countries in the Southeast Asia, Malaysia, Thailand, and the Philippines, to assess the areas that encourage or deter access to trade and growth of women-run or owned small or medium enterprises. So the findings is highlighted in this video. You can look at it in your own time. And then we'll just go to the barriers. Okay. Traditional gender role, expectations, and patriarchal attitudes is very common in the Southeast Asian nations. So perceptions such as women's place at the home and the first priority is to look after the home and family. They have the primary responsibility for children and older dependent family members. This was referred to by Almas Giovanni in her interview. It's called the sandwich generation, where women are increasingly finding themselves in the middle, caring for their young and for the aging. And yeah, you might have heard of the book by Rebecca Schomburg entitled "It's Not a Glass Ceiling, It's the Sticky Floor," wherein she identified some self-limiting behaviors and beliefs. So obstacles, especially invisible ones, can be personal. So other intangible barriers are lack of confidence, fear to venture into the unknown, or fear of failure, risk aversion, self-perception about capabilities, commitment, and even self-discipline. And The tangible or the obvious barriers, again, it's been mentioned in the previous panels, and adequate access to productive resources, so access to credit and finance. So in the Philippines, most women in the informal economy, so street vendors, hawkers, not hookers, but hawkers, and MSMEs are unserved by government financial institutions and even microfinance institutions due to the high cost of service delivery and also the stringent requirements that are below the capacity of these women to meet. So again, it was mentioned, collateral. In the Philippines, it's the law that it's not just the woman, but also the husband. So if it is a conjugal property, you have to obtain the consent of the other spouse before you can put it as a collateral to finance your own business. But in the Philippines, the landscape actually to encourage entrepreneurial services, aspirations. We have a Magna Carta called MSME, and also we have the Barangay, which means Village Microbusiness Enterprise Development, which specifically mandate financing for enterprises and informal businesses. So like really minimal funds, but you know, having these programs or having these laws, obtaining the funds is a different story. And other barriers, hiring and training presents a large challenge for all entrepreneurs, but maybe of particular concern to women. Again, lingering gender biases with regard to women's leadership in business may be among the factors fueling this concern. So women are often perceived as poor business leaders due to cultural stereotypes or are predisposed to men operating in such roles. So again, if you're a good businesswoman leader, you're viewed as excessively masculine, and that this would limit your access to business networks, may make it more difficult for women employers to attract skilled employees. In the World Bank findings about facts on family life that significantly impact women's choice about work outside the home, women bear most of the burden for household and care work, while men are more responsible for market work. However, when all of the work is taken into account, the household care and market work, women work more than men. This double burden can place severe time constraints on women entrepreneurs and business owners. So let me just end my discussion. It's just a picture with our president. Keynote dialogue between public and private sector to further enhance women's economic participation in October last year. So again, it is about most important why all stakeholders should be involved to address the barriers to women's engagement in economic activity, to fully realize the potential contribution of women to the equitable and inclusive growth of the society. Thank you.
Thank you, Amelia. Any questions for Amelia?
Question. I was just wondering, what type of businesses are we talking about here, which your sample of women entrepreneurs that we're talking about? Are they in the same kind of businesses we're talking about, where women are expected to get into, cooking, fashion, and lifestyle type of businesses, or are we talking about something that tries to more?
Well, we have the statistics of the Department of Trade and Industry. Majority are micro and small businesses, and it's been identified that micro enterprise has got a several millions capitalization, but it ranges from 1 employee to 9 employees, and then it graduates 10 employees to I think 20 is more. And also I mentioned the informal businesses. So these businesses are not regulated by the Department of Trade and Industry, no license or anything. So it's a typical, like even in the streets in the Philippines, you can buy a cigarette in the streets, selling, buying just one. So these are informal entrepreneurs or businesses that we have in the Philippines. And also I've mentioned big businesses. I mean those women entrepreneurs I've shown. Yeah, they own medium to even large businesses.
Wondering, I mean, it'd be really nice. I was just thinking here that, you know, there are a lot of male bastions that we could break down. When is we get one of our Asians or any woman buying a football club? Okay. Maybe we start with a Filipino or a Malaysian football club. Why does it have to be a ethnic Chinese?
Well, number one, I think in the Philippines, because we're very Americanized, right?
Yeah.
Our number one sport is basketball.
Yeah.
No, not softball. What do you call it? No, soccer. What do you call it? The football. It's getting popular, but really, basketball is being played anywhere, even the side streets. You know, they just put a barrier and then they put a net and yeah, they play it.
So maybe don't want to emulate, you know, someone who want to show off by buying football clubs. Is there any more? What do you guys think? Do you think buying football clubs is a good idea? I mean, is it a way to break into this, you know, we're talking about breaking barriers. So we don't get too many women in football
I think
clubs.
talking about football as a woman's seminar isn't necessarily actually ideal follow-up to talk about women in business.
Financially, it's
Yeah.
disaster.
Yeah. But that's not the reason why Vincent Tan has bought Cardiff City and Tony Fernandez. Yeah, big hit, yes, it's publicity as we're talking about. They can't buy that.
I think the point that was made was that women are risk averse as entrepreneurs, so why would we do that?
Well, football is not terribly, I mean, maybe buying a football club is very
You
risky.
brought up buying a
Neutral,
football
but,
club,
yeah.
so that is what I am answering.
Yeah.
But I think it's got to do with passion as well, because you mentioned Tony Fernandez. I've actually met him in one of talks that I have attended, and then he said that one of the reasons that he bought QPR is really his passion. It's not really to make money, it's to invest. But
You believe him? You believe his football?
I think so, yeah. Yeah.
Any other questions for Amelia?
I would like to know, based on your observation of real-life examples, so not just speculation, whether Asian women would be more likely to just stick to certain categories of business as an entrepreneur because of maybe social stigma or social stereotyping. I think it's an important question because of the specific demographics and education level of Asian women, and also the likely pushback if they tried to go into something that was traditionally seen as a men's industry. Do you have live examples of women in your country or other Asian countries going into what Asians perceive as a male-dominated field and becoming an entrepreneur?
You know, when I attended the Filipino Women's Network Association, it's a San Francisco, USA-based Filipino network. I get to meet and network with a lot of Filipinas who are holding executive positions in big companies, and also having their business, like not just in America but also in the Philippines. And I think amongst the Southeast Asian countries, Philippines in a way has sort of like matured and moved, or I was actually surprised that there's actually quite a few Filipinas who can be considered who has broken the glass ceiling. And also the Philippines has is the country that is ranked 5th on the gender gap index, 5th out of the 186, and we're the highest in Asia. And also we're the only country in Asia that's closed the gap especially on health and education, and closing the gender gap in those areas. So yes, there are, although, as I said, the two main push factors in the Philippines is poverty and also growing up in an entrepreneurial environment, like myself. I mean, I've ventured into several business because I just grew up that way. That my parents has got several stakes in different sectors. So, and same thing with those very successful Filipino businessmen owning big businesses, and the background is sort of like the same. It's the since they were kids, they can see how their parents or extended families operate, having like for example a movie house or like a lending company or a pawn shop. So it's I think it's being nurtured. And in fact, there is one study to suggestion or recommendation that for us to really break the barrier, especially of gender-specific professions, so for example, engineering, which is very light, and also IT, is that we should start it on the lower level. So when the kids start studying or entering school, they should have like lessons on this type of like orienting them on it. And also financial literacy, because I think it's worth mentioning that there's 12 million Filipinos abroad, and actually these remittances constitutes 10% of the GDP of the country. And Philippines in Asia has got the second highest after China of growth rate in terms of its GDP. But if you're going to look at it, like last year, 2015, I think there's like almost 30 billion US dollars of remittances coming from Filipinos around the world. But a very small percentage actually goes to savings. So they send it to the family back home. Some of it, yeah, they send it, they pay for the tuition fees, course fees of the children, but most of it are spent on, other things. We have a very big consumer population. So very small percentage. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's less than 10% of those money goes to savings, which is a shame. So if they're going to be like financially orientated at such an early age, because they're not going to be abroad forever working. You have to go home. And majority of the Filipino workers abroad, once they go home, they're even poorer than before they went abroad because they haven't saved anything.
Excuse me.
So, any questions?
Sorry, I just had one comment. No, thanks again. I'm Filipino also, but what I wanted to say, if you look at the ILO report, it's 48% of the Filipinos occupy 48% of management positions as of 2015. It's quite high. You don't have a problem in the executive positions. In fact, a lot of them are breaking into, to answer your question directly, they're breaking into traditionally men areas. So a friend of mine, for example, is now the head of a power company. There's a mining engineer that's now carrying the reins of a mining company. So there is.
Sorry, that's not a question. That's.
I was just talking about that.
Okay.
So the question before that was, what sectors are they breaking in? But if you really want to look at the problem, you have to look at the lower rungs of society. The issue there is, and it's a function of maternal health. If you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, we're farther behind in terms of maternal health. A lot of the reasons is because the Philippines only passed its family planning code 3 years ago, and it hasn't been funded. So it's women who don't have the right to plan their families, space their families, and therefore take jobs. And that's where your comment on risk averseness comes in, because they have no choice right now. If you look at the CDE, they are having twice the number of kids they want because they have no access to family planning, and therefore anything to go into entrepreneurship is dashed because they have no opportunity to go beyond child rearing. And that is a fact in the Philippines because strong Catholic Church, problem with family planning which hasn't been solved up to date. Congress has blocked any legislation, any funding. So that has to be a reality you look at. Because on the top, it's generally fine. In fact, it's leading, we're fourth in the world. It's the bottom part that you have to look at.
But it's been passed already.
No, the funding has been blocked.
Oh, the funding, yes.
So what's the point, what's the point of the law if the funding's been blocked? That's the reality.
I just like to add one more industry in Myanmar, which I recently found out and quite shocked, is silversmith, which is making ring. In Myanmar, men go back to religion. When you are born, they believe that men are born with, there's no direct translation, it's called whole, which means they are spiritually higher, you know. So woman smith, there's no one woman smith in Myanmar because nobody will find the ring from her. Because the person, she can do all the supporting things, but the person who has to fit the final stone has to be a man because he has whole, he is spiritually higher. So if a woman were to fit a stone, there's no market. So I know that the AKR, she is now training a group of silversmith lady, you know, and sell it to women, you know. So that industry definitely zero silversmith right now.
If there's no question, I think Ms. Reina was from Howard. You wanted to ask a question to Professor Wilson?
All three of them.
It's okay.
Yeah, oh yes, I know. In all the research that you've done on family companies in Malaysia, did you find that the sons were favored more than the daughters? So the family businesses are handed to the sons rather than,
Good question. Yes or no? Eldest sons are, I was saying, it's slightly complex, maybe trying to be too subtle, message I was trying to convey. That eldest sons are favored. Anthony Tan, who started up Grab Taxi, My Taxi, so on, third son. He is maybe better considered to be perhaps more valuable by a family. I don't think so though, than a daughter. I'm thinking through my research that whilst I've not focused on gender, unless you're the eldest son, everyone else is pretty much of a second rank, yes. And that there is then, once you're a second, there is then no difference between whether you're poor second or stronger second, whether you're a woman, whether you're a man, you see. And that, you have to find your own way to become successful. You might still have a role in the family company, but it's a very different kind of role. You're not a star. You expect to take over. And therefore, Anthony Tan, being the third son, for example, was given some money. He called it a whole bank account. I'm sure it's a whole bank account bigger than most of us in this room, to start his app business, after his Harvard MBA. He's not a micro entrepreneur. Raising what first round was something like 20 million, 15 million US dollars, that kind of thing. And my suggestion is that even a third son or a third daughter would have been able to get that kind of parental support financially. And more importantly, perhaps, unless you're the eldest son, you have a difference. You have the same kind of support as well. But if you're a second-rank son or daughter, you would have access to family networks, family reputation, in order to start whatever you want to do. So I hope that kind of answers the question.
but I'm just saying the president of power is Song Ji-Kim from South Korea. She basically did her own thing. There was the family business that she couldn't really get involved
extended perspective that I've suggested of co-opting others into a family-based family organization in order not just for the skion to continue to run the business like his father or grandfather used, but in a different way, fundamental. You know, that in many banks in Singapore, you may say, yes, it's a government mandate, but also the family anticipated that they would not manage any of the family banks in Singapore. Yes, there was one still, which is UOB, I'm thinking of, which is still managed by founder's son now, passed on. But not the other family firm, which is more closer to my extended family. It's just different. It's just a difficult phenomenon. Even in the same context, we're looking at rich, wealthy economies as I'm doing, whether we're talking about ethnic Chinese or not. There is discrimination amongst girls, but I've not seen in my research, ask a question, a situation where a daughter of a family was not given anything, was just told to get married and get away and get lost. Yes. But there's still some form of financial support. And I'm saying that whether you're a girl or a boy, that there is always still, with your name, networking and reputation to go with it, whether you're a girl or a boy. It's for us to be able to maximize and use and advise our younger generation beyond family firms. We're talking about maybe people who are connected with family firms who are not blood relatives, who also have a status as the fathers are running the family company, other people's family company, as if it were their own. There are several examples of this.
Can I just ask one more question, which is all about government help for women in business? The British government has tried quite a few times to do a lot of work in this area, but it has not been successful at all for various reasons. And I wonder what the experience is in the other Southeast Asian countries.
Can I answer? I have, because of being an academy, I always try to apply for some, I do write research projects related to Myanmar to submit to European research councils. So during that time, I have worked with some NGOs to partner with me and so on. So the reasons why many of these organizations are not successful is not because they don't have money. They just don't have enough skill sets to penetrate to those underprivileged people. One of them then is the lack of trust. In Myanmar, I'm just saying that in Myanmar, one of them is lack of trust. People don't trust each other. And the second point comes back to what you were saying about even within Myanmar, there are different parts of sector, kind of like, how to say, it's like area where we Burmese are considered as alien. And in those areas where you can't go there and do some research, or you can't even provide that. It's like their own state. They are governed by that. And these are very sensitive area to get into. For example, like the area where the Rakhine, which is near to Bangladesh, where there are a lot of Rohingya issues, we cannot get penetrated. Many of these NGOs cannot go to and then help the women there because there are some resistance to get help from the foreign aids. So it's like coming back to being so nationalistic in some way, and also contributed by being religious in some way. And there was I was just talking to one person, and why mobile banking is not going to fully work is that in some areas in Myanmar they said that okay, this mobile company cannot come to my area. We won't have them as a business. We won't buy the mobile operator because they are from Qatar, which is a Muslim company. So origin. But that company is able to provide that kind of mobile banking services, but they were saying that, well, we are not going to have it. So even if the telecommunication or banking sector is innovative, there are some resistance to buy the products there. So it can stem from the religious point of view, the cultural point of view, the nationalist, ground. There are many things that are happening in Myanmar. I'm not sure about other Southeast Asian countries, but I'm just talking from
for this kind of symposium to find out, whilst we all recognize there are constraints, one of my suggestions was, looking at family firms, for example, to be able to find some enabling factors still, be able to use these constraints constructively. I don't know in this silversmith situation whether it is possible, because it's such a yes, no, open, shut situation. You're a woman, or whatever you do in this industry, silversmith, is valueless. But that industry accepted. Perhaps there are many others where you could turn the tables on the community that is trying to devalue you. It's almost like the Islamic woman. There's one of our scholars there reading again, that she was suggesting that in Islamic finance, typically women are receivers and customers in a one-way relationship.
I think there's not only culture, but there's also like ageism. Like elder people don't want to get knowledge from younger people because they feel that, oh, I know more. What does she know? Kind of thing. She's just so young, she can't know anything about it. So there's like, there should be a reciprocal. We should also make them like, okay, they should be accepting of us for us to give them the opinions. But that's like, that needs to be changed as well.
But how is it in Myanmar then? I mean, I've heard from Sanda how you have a public stock exchange. But guess how many company is quoted? That's why you're here.
One company
this is a great stock exchange. I don't have to go very far to use a data sample. Big data, just go to you.
There's only one bag, and it's playing up and down by itself. Only one.
Right. So you will meet you inside a train.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we have run over about 10 minutes. So if any of you have any questions to our panel members, please do it. Yeah.
Thank you. Very, very cool. Thank you. Very interesting. All right, I understood. But it's quite interesting.
I just want to say thank you very much for coming here for the afternoon, for the whole day. Thank you for your contribution. Thank you for people who asked the questions. Thank you for the lectures. We'll start tomorrow. I know we're standing between me and dinner now. Rather than sum up today, we thought it would be better if we summed up tomorrow morning when we start the day at night. Here please, and in this room, and what we'll do tomorrow is Phyllis will start off with, she's the chief rapporteur, she just start with wrapping up, and then I will lead the leadership session, and then after that we'll probably have workshops, but more small, and we'll probably combine them so we can ask more questions and debate some of the key points that Phyllis will be bringing up. So, thank you very much once again.
Congratulations so far. It's been a great presentation.
Yeah, what? Oh, yeah, sure.